Welcome into the Show 6 podcast, where we break down the championship series for Pokemon Go. In this episode, we're kicking things off in Portland, where our 2023 World Champion ItsAXN rolled to gold with Big Man Blastoise. Next, we'll travel to Bologna, where Filbeg completed just the second perfect sweep in championship series history. Finally, we'll wrap up with the Durban South Africa event, where Diveshan claimed a decisive Game 5 victory to become the first South African to qualify for the World Championships. All of this, plus a GoFest preview, our first impressions of the Delightful Days meta, and more. So if you're ready, good luck, lock in, and have fun. Welcome in, everyone. It's so good to see you all here today. I have my illustrious co-host, the Zzweilous, joining on the show per usual. ZZ, we've got an awesome episode to talk about. It feels like every single week we're making history, and it's really cool to see some older names like ItsAXN rising back to prominence. I mean, the world stage is going to be wild this year.
Yeah, hello, Speedy. Thanks for having me once again. In a little bit of a different environment. I'm visiting family this week, but it allowed me to essentially watch the Bologna Special Championships while not having to cook for myself. So that was really, really appreciated.
That's a plus.
And yeah, I got offered a show like 18-0, especially from a player that we may not have seen on the Play Pokemon leaderboard so far, with Filbeg taking it all. And obviously, leading into that, Big Man Blastoise, ItsAXN finding a new signature Pokemon. Like he's still on that Medicham propaganda. He had the plushie in his interviews, very well spoken interviews, if I may say so myself. He did call for the Force Palm Medicham. But yeah, he did manage to leave it behind and actually unwash himself.
Yes.
if you could ever say that about one of the best players this game has ever seen.
Exactly. Yeah, he was very well spoken, almost like a politician campaigning for Medicham. I think he did one interview. He said Force Spawn Medicham, and then another interview he said Psyshock Medicham. He just wants that Pokemon to get buffed back into relevancy, and we did see the plushie up on stage as well.
He's on message, and I can appreciate that.
He absolutely is, right? He's very consistent. And I know a lot of trainers are very grateful to him for jumping right into content after the World Championships. I remember he started off his YouTube channel with the move count timing video series, which I still think is very, very helpful. And then he's continued to just stream, make content, make videos after that. So shout out to ItsAXN. Before we get to the grand finals and the Blastoise dominance, I'd love to talk about the top cut and maybe some of the meta trends that we saw. A few players I wanted to shout out. It was very cool to see Bird Power come back to the stage. She had a really fun interview as well during the broadcast, and she's obviously like basically a prodigy at the game. I remember back to Indianapolis in 2022 when she just cleared out her division and then went to the Masters division and was cleaning up there as well. So I'm very, very proud of her. We also had Dileptron bringing the Shadow Blastoise, which I thought was really sick. That's what I expected to do well, because when you look at the simulations, the Shadow Blastoise seems to perform a lot better than the regular. And then we had Out of Pocket, of course, doing out of pocket things. But I got to mention a couple of stars, actually 3 different stars. I wanted to zero in on Kobe Couplant, as well as Chemcoop and Stud Muffins. Those 3 players have been kind of like on the cusp, maybe a top cut here, top cut there, respectable trainers, but nothing like what they were this past weekend in Portland. They were super, super impressive. I'm not sure what you saw on your side, ZZ, but I was shocked that Kobe Coupland in particular was able to dominate with Diggersby and Clodsire Double Ground.
Yeah, I really enjoy myself a medium-sized tournament because Portland had 107 players competing, and that is a good chunk more than we had, for example, at the Seville Special Championship, where we had more signups, but at the end of the day, only like 65 people actually sat down at the tables to play their matches. I feel like 107 is a nice number because it essentially makes it so that it's not one of those events in a big hub where everybody just travels to, and we essentially just see the same people over and over, but it's like a medium-sized affair where we can
Mm.
see some locals maybe that get the chance to shine. And I feel like Kobe Copeland really embodies that because if I remember correctly from the broadcast, I actually haven't looked that up. I should have looked that up, but he only ever competes in Portland, if I'm if I'm remembering that correctly.
No, you're
Um,
correct.
and he's always putting on a show. I feel like Kobe Copeland probably was the player with the highest catches made per games played ratio. I feel like he always managed to wiggle his way out of difficult situations. And not only did he do that, but he also did it against some of the best players in the world. I feel like, what was it? Was he the yeah, he was in the out of pocket group. So he actually
Yes.
played the losers finals against Pocket, who is a strong argument for being, if not the best player in North America this season, then at least top three.
Hmm.
And on day two, I think he did the same thing to Junebug, where he
Yep.
just took down another giant of the competitive scene. And to do that as somebody who maybe does not get all the practice that those people that travel to 10 plus events a season get, that is beyond impressive. And it was definitely a joy to see Kobe Copeland do well, especially because he had a team that was fairly unusual, at least for North American standards.
I love that you tack that on at the end, and you're exactly right. I think the North American standards, I'm so used to it, and I saw the team, and I was thinking like, I don't know if Kobe's cooking here or if this is just kind of something that's going to fizzle out. But you're exactly right. He faced Out of Pocket to make day number two. It was his last round of the group stage, and then he faced ItsAXN directly afterwards. And then he also, or excuse me, yeah, he faced ItsAXN and then Pocket in the loser side. Then he took on Dunebug and 2-0 Dunebug, only to be knocked out of the tournament by Ashton Ash. So honestly, like out of any gauntlet of four players that you could have gone up against in Portland, this might have been the strongest. And we look
Yeah.
at Kobe Copeland's performance in Portland last year. You're exactly on the money about that as well. He finished third last year with Cresselia, Gligar, Mandibuzz, Shadow Poliwrath, Registeel, and Whiscash. A different time, I might say, but just a testament to how he's able to adapt to the new metas.
Yeah, maybe we had some timeless travels influencing the meta back then. But yeah, we're in the future now. Not in the future, probably in the present rather. It would be difficult
Yes,
to be in the future,
that would be cool
and
though.
yeah, it is true. But yeah, we have no future side Chrysalias, but we do have the Big Man Blastoise being the pick of the day, the pick of the weekend,
Yep.
and I know that you have been a big fan of Blastoise for a long time, Speedy. Did you did you know this was going to happen? Because I feel like you always had like a pretty good feeling about Blastoise, or were you like almost writing it off after like we came all the way to like the last 2 weeks of this meta without Blastoise
Yeah.
doing anything, and like it was on Fraud Watch, but its accent really showed what it was capable of.
It was absolutely on Fraud Watch. I started to get a feeling that there might be something there based on how Dilat played it at the previous regional. I thought that safe switching it, playing the Shadow again, I thought was the the choice. But I was really surprised, honestly, to see how Axon deployed it. We saw most of the games, and Stark and I commented on this right when we were doing our commentary together. Most of the games you see him safe switching the Blastoise, and he's able to get an extra rollout. Not dissimilar from playing any 3-turn fast attack user, where you want to get that little lead on energy before you go into the next matchup when your opponent counter swaps. And he did that really really well, and then he ends up leading it in I think game 3 or game 4 of the grand finals. So he kind of flipped our expectations as well. Blastoise is really impressive though, because rollout doesn't feel like an attack that you can farm things down with unless it's a really soft target like a Talonflame or a Typhlosion or something really really
It
weak
got
to
nerfed at
rock.
the start of the season, right? They decreased the
Yeah,
damage by one per rollout.
yeah, exactly. Increase the damage, or no, increase the energy but decrease the
Yeah,
damage.
so they buffed the energy a while ago, but the damage
Hmm.
also, and then they went back on part of the damage buff. So
Yeah.
it's still better than it used to be, but it's worse than last season when we had Pokemon like Bibarel or even Dunsparce make a name for themselves.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I felt like Rollout was kind of in a curious place. Blastoise also has like a really interesting attack stat. I think a lot of people don't know the IV spreads that you can use to win certain charge attack priority ties. Because if you look at Blastoise, I mean, the rank one is going to have about 110 attack, which I think is a little bit higher than some of the bulkier Great League picks. But it's not anything like, catastrophic like a Typhlosion or a
It's in
Talonflame.
a weird tier because, like,
Yeah.
recently I played Blastoise in GBL, and I
Mhm.
thought I had the match lost because while I had a Hydro Cannon loaded, my opponent's Shadow Canto Marowak also had a Bone Club. And because I always see the Canto Marowak as such an aggressive Pokemon that does a lot
Yeah.
of damage in a short amount of time, I was
Yep.
very certain that I would lose that charge attack priority. But actually, Blastoise typically comes out ahead just by a little margin. And
Mhm.
I think my confusion is partly explained due to the fact that you often see the shadow bonus on the Marowak damage. So it looks
Yeah.
immediately more threatening, but because charge attack priority is decided by the raw stats rather than
Yep.
by the 20% multiplier, Blastoise can actually win that.
Yeah, and I think those nuances are really important. Blastoise has more attack than Claydol, but less than Furret, which feels like really counterintuitive, right? Because you think of Furret as like a bulky normal type Pokemon with an above average attack stat, but Blastoise being significantly like 3 to 5 points lower than that is pretty interesting. But yeah, I was just really impressed with how Axon played it. He moved it around, pivoted quite a bit. If I remember correctly, he did rely a lot on double water. He played a lot of like I think this is what Stark and I talked about. He played a lot of like random Pokemon in the lead and double water in the back, being Lapras and Blastoise. So it's like Shadow Jump Bluff in the lead or Tinkaton in the lead. But to his credit, he did play. He didn't play double water every game in the grand finals. Game one was Tinkaton, Malamar, Blastoise. Game two was Diggersby, Shadow Jump Bluff, Blastoise. Game three, Shadow Jump Bluff, Lapras, Blastoise, our only example of double water. And then game four, he went ABA water with Blastoise lead, Lapras, and Shadow Jump Bluff. And I think a lot of this has to be viewed in kind of the context of the team he was up against, because you can't just run ABA water in GBL and have a lot of success, especially if there's so many Jump Bluff with Energy Ball for whatever mysterious reason, or so many Superiors and Cradillies. But he was able to make it work in this tournament. I'm not sure if there's anything that like really impressed you about the gameplay, but I felt like ItsAXN's counts were probably the best part of what he did this weekend. He never lost track of energy, not even for a second.
I actually have like multiple notes on just how Axon played his games, and
Mm-hmm.
also when I knew that something special was going to happen that weekend. Because I'll be honest, I have been rooting for Axon for a long while now. For one, because he's a fairly likable dude. I never
Yeah.
actually talked to him much, but I really enjoy what he's been doing in terms of being an ambassador for the community as a creator, be it on Twitch or YouTube. But yeah, he's like always like he is polite without being like boring or shy. Like he strikes a good
Mm-hmm.
balance. And I think that really draws a lot of especially newer players in. And I'm really grateful for that because I'm always rooting for the scene to grow. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that Axon has been a big part of that ever since he took his world championship title and used the newfound audience to build essentially a little bit of a content creation career on that.
Yep.
But also, I really like a good story. If you like, I'm a sports journalist, and if there's a comeback story of somebody who used to dominate their sport essentially, um, but I feel like ever since he won Worlds, I think Axon won like or not played like 10 events, but
Mm-hmm.
he only made top eight twice, winning one medal, which was I think it might have been Louisville earlier this season where he got a
Yeah.
fourth place.
Fourth
But
place.
this was a trainer who he won Portland in 2023. He was a previous North American international champion, and he was a world champion. He was like the pinnacle of Pokemon Go PvP, and he went almost 2 years trying to find his form. And now, like him finding his form just as this season leads into NAIC, leads into Worlds. This is such an intriguing and compelling storyline that I was definitely like hoping for him to have this moment and really excited when he did manage to have it. And the moment when I knew it was going to happen was his winners semifinals in the group stage on day one.
Mm.
because that lined up to be against Out of Pocket. Again, somebody
Mm.
that I consider top three in North America right now. Um, and Axon not only played super well and took that series, but he also showed how calm he could be under pressure in multiple scenarios, in multiple situations. He actively waited to see what Pocket would do, whether a fast move would come through, whether a swap would come through, so he wouldn't waste energy on a target that he didn't want to use the energy on. And
Mm.
being so locked in, even when faced with one of the most elite competitors in North America, that just shows that you're on form. That just shows that you can do it again. And yeah, it definitely led into a fantastic tournament run. And I definitely want to shout out the Blastoise meta call because I think like rollout is a rock type fast attack,
Mm.
and that is awkward in a meta where you have like a lot of fighting types. But the main fighter in the current meta is Malamar. While Malamar still has a decent matchup against Blastoise,
Mhm.
Blastoise has such a better time into Malamar compared to the old Primeape or Annihilate. And I thought the idea of safe swapping Blastoise in a meta that doesn't have fighters to resist the fast attacks, and the only grass type you really see doesn't run grass attacks and is also part flying. I
Exactly.
thought that was a great use of a rollouter.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's one of those instances where if you can get past this one huge obstacle, you can likely take it all the way. And getting past Pocket felt like a milestone. It felt like after that,
It's
I
like a
agree with you.
momentum win, right? Like
Yes,
once you do that, like you know, okay, I'm I still got it. I'm still him, kind
yes,
of, and
yes,
it was
exactly.
great to witness.
Yeah, it felt like when he won that series, it was 2-1, so it came down to a decisive game three. When he won that series, I was like, oh, I think Axton's back. I think he's really here this time, which is was very very like poetic to see. Um, Axton's team was interesting too because you mentioned safe switching the Blastoise into a field with basically no Primeape, no Annihilate, no Poliwrath, whatever. He was actually running Skull Bash on the Blastoise, and his Ice Beam tech was on the Lapras, which made it a bit of an interesting matchup for him whenever he did encounter a Jump Love, because he kind of lacked a hard answer. On his team, he had the Blastoise, the Diggersby, Shadow Jumpluff, Lapras, Malamar, and Tinkaton. And I'd say that Jumpluff is like relatively neutral into just about everything on the team. I don't see any Talonflame. I don't see Typhlosion. I don't see Corviknight anywhere. It really feels like there's really no hard answer. And I feel like so much of where players get hung up is trying to build the perfect team with no weaknesses that breaks all the cores, et cetera, et cetera. But what's much more important than that is actually picking your weakness and then refining a way to beat it, to overcome it. And I think that Axon did a great job of that because, like you said, we can expect no fighters in the meta, but what we can also expect is 69% jump love usage in the entire tournament. All right. It's very nice. I know, but
I
expecting
consider
this,
this unfortunate, but also like nice.
yeah, yeah, unfortunate, but exactly, but also nice, kind of a mixed bag, right? But I think finding creative ways to beat the jump love was really, really important for him in his tournament victory. So again, yeah, just knowing your team inside and out is super, super important. Um, I feel like Axon really needed this win. I feel like as a perennial competitor, obviously, I think everyone in Pokemon looks up to Wolf and how Wolf is able to win worlds. But it was, it was, oh my goodness, it was almost a decade ago now. And then you look at him and you say, well, does he still have that world champion spirit? Does he still have that competitive edge? And then he comes out and wins these bigger tournaments, and then he wins an IC, and then he has all these incredible speeches, and the content he makes is insane. I feel like
Aura
Pokemon.
farming is what the kids call it. Yes.
Absolutely. Just straight up farming aura. And honestly, VG is so lucky to have Wolf because he is such a persona. And I feel like Pokemon Go is still searching for its Wolf in a sense. We're still searching for that trainer that will win tournament after tournament, pop up here and there, and be relevant for almost a decade, which is very hard to do, extremely hard to do. So seeing Axon come back in and win was very, very poetic. And to your point earlier, I think I've talked about this on the last episode. I think it's really critical to peak at the right moment in the season, because you have trainers maybe like Wadaj that will come in and win the first event, and it shows that they can adapt to the meta really well. You have Rise that wins at like halfway meta, where things are changing. It shows you that he's one of the best in the world at reading the meta and understanding changes. But then you have trainers like Axon or like Pocket, who come on late in the season, like Pocket did last season at NAIC, and they just absolutely are on fire going into Worlds, and that's so critical to find your momentum at the right time in the season, because you can be super hot in September, but then by the time the next August rolls around and the meta has changed and you haven't won anything in a while, and maybe your confidence is a little low, it can be a tough go at Worlds.
Yeah, I remember. I remember that Vadaj run too, where he like won 3 out of 4 tournaments in a row, and the only one that he didn't win was a third place at Worlds. So yeah, like if you have that momentum going when it really matters, which is at the ICs on the world stage,
Mm-hmm.
that can really make a difference. But especially with this world's meta being a little different from the previous ones, and that they actually dared to change up things a little more than usual.
Yeah.
I wonder whether these experiences from this past meta will count as much as previously. And I also wonder how competitors will um, essentially get in form ahead of Worlds, because I think
Mm-hmm.
one nice thing about the development of Pokemon Go PvP, especially in Show 6, is that I found there to be a lot more grassroots tournament options, be it practice tournaments or
Mm-hmm.
a little more prestigious priced events that the community organizes. And I'm sure there will be at least one in the lead up to the big event, which is Worlds, as well this summer. There's going to be a big break between NEIC and Worlds, and yeah, it's like you got to stay sharp. You got to predict the meta development that you may not be familiar with at all, because
Mm-hmm.
there's the black box of no official tournaments. And but at least having your confidence up, because so much of
Yeah.
this is a mental game. Also, I think that is what's going to translate beyond the Might and Mastery meta.
I agree with you. I think it's very critical to be to perform well and to also be confident going into this. Speaking to the new meta, I'm like itching to talk about it. Right, you brought it up a little bit. I'm like, oh man, I wish we could just jump ahead to that segment. So if you're listening, we will discuss some of our picks that we've made for the upcoming meta, our first impressions. But of course, we're going to learn a lot more once we actually do those practice tournaments. So I've got one eye on the Candle Cult server looking for these practice tournaments to pop up. Axon did tweet. He tweeted on May 27th, and he said, "quote This is the best pre-Worlds moveset update they've ever done. I couldn't be happier with the size of the changes. NAIC is going to be the Wild West," with a smiling cowboy emoji. I think this is also fascinating too, because you have a trainer that not only has a ton of momentum after winning Portland and reclaiming, his gold that he won a couple of years back, but he's also very excited about the meta changes, and he's also one of the most brilliant minds in the community. So I don't know. I mean, Axon could be gearing up for a very special NAIC and Worlds run. It seems like all the pieces are falling into place.
Yeah, but like one thing that I will say right now, Metacham is not going to be viable. Just to get that out of the way. But yeah, again, like I'm really excited to not only team build in this meta, but also see what other people are thinking about. Because one thing that we did see, going into Utrecht previously, going into Portland, and then going into Bologna, is that a lot of competitors just looked at the previous event and then either copied the winning team, or copied the winning team and tweaked like one element of it, or
Yeah.
decided to hard counter the winning team. But now we essentially have a clean slate again, and that's leading into an IC. And I think that is very exciting just from a viewer's perspective. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, dude, freaking rip to Shadow Malamar, right? I mean, it had like 10 seconds of fame, and Filbeg made it look really good.
Yeah,
Um,
it got to win a tournament undefeated, and then it retired. Like this is
and
definitely
then
going out on a high.
absolutely crash and burn after that. At least that's what I personally expect, and I think you do as well. Um, before we wrap up our Portland coverage, I just wanted to shout out again to Kem Coop. He was really impressive. I said this during the cast. He was willing to take risk and to call leads a bit more than other competitors when it was really important to do so. He even led his Claydol into Ticketon. I think that was the only game that he won in the grand finals versus Axen, which is very, very impressive to make that read. Stud Muffins, I feel like that trainer is on the cusp of winning an event. I think if you didn't have a former world champion, a former second place NAIC finisher, Dunebug, Adib, Pranav, all these other trainers, if you didn't have them at this event, I think Stud Muffins had a solid shot to win it. And I really want to see Ash Nash win an event. I mean, he's such a welcoming, calm, and kind personality. I want him to succeed as well, in a similar vein that I want Axen to succeed. So I'm sure he'll get his gold, and I hope that he doesn't give up. I don't know if you have any comments on players, but I just wanted to plant one more seed. I'm curious what you thought of the Speedy Stark casting duo, because I've heard some things. I heard some people give me feedback.
Yeah, like we have not exchanged notes, but this is like exactly what I wrote down. Like my notes
Okay.
read Stud Muffins, most improved player question mark.
Yeah.
Ashton Ash, best player without a gold question mark. Like those trainers that came in just behind the Big Accent storyline, I feel like they're due their moment in a way. And they've definitely shown that they belong with the best this season. And like, who knows? NEIC is coming up. Nash was in the grand finals last year. Maybe he can do it again. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that is definitely some storylines we want to keep an eye on. But yeah, the House Stark casting debut. I personally loved it. I
Yeah.
thought this was like between I messaged you that like straight after the event when you had that exchange where you pretended to go coloring when that came up in one of the segments. Like you were like, okay, picture the scene. The social media segment, people can use the hashtag play Pokemon and show up on screen, and the casters have to talk about it. And
Yes.
Speedy led into it. Somebody was like at the coloring booth and just like painting pictures of Pokemon. And Speedy was like, "Yep, sounds good. I'm out. I'll do this for the next 5 minutes." And like Stark had to take over, essentially like hosting and talking through the social media segment. And at one point, he was like trying to talk to you as if you were back, like, maybe Speedy is back already from his coloring. But he was not. Speedy was not back from his coloring job. You just sat there next to him, like, apparently gave him a stern look and said, "No, no, you walk us through all of this." And yeah, it was hilarious. I thought you guys had immediate chemistry. I love that. Stark also got to cast alongside somebody like you who just has that experience and can ease somebody who definitely has talent and has
Mm,
done great casting jobs at grassroots level before, but maybe hasn't had those cameras on him in to that degree just yet.
mm,
I thought that you did a good job of easing him into it, and I also love that he brings a different personality to the
mm.
table than some of our most beloved casters do. Because
Agreed.
if we look at a Two Butters, if we look at a Home Slice Henry, those people are knowledgeable, they are hyped, they are loud, and they definitely try to make everything as exciting as possible. But they also have a fairly similar style, in my
Mm,
opinion, where it's like very hype shoutcasting, whereas Stark just has a more low key personality. And I think that is excellent because it just complements other casting styles so well. He's still quick witted, but he's easy to follow. Like a lot of my friends have complimented his voice. Like everybody
yeah.
was like, "Oh, how Stark! He's such a soothing voice. I could fall asleep to that." But that's a compliment. It's not boring. It just
Yeah.
has such a nice voice to listen to. And yeah, I feel like he had a good amount of wordplay here and there, like really quick wit, but also just like the matchup knowledge. So definitely a great fit behind the caster's desk.
I remember years ago when PvP was first coming, to the game, and King IV went around kind of dubbing the best trainers in North America, the so-called Elite Four, and of course Stark was a part of that. He was the first trainer to get rank 10 in Go Battle League in the first season that we know of, right? Check our NA privilege there. But Stark has consistently been a trainer that competitively I always looked up to. I always felt like he was top tier, a cut above basically everyone else. And I remember at Sylph Continentals when he and I battled each other, I actually aligned my Fortress versus his Mew in a decisive game 3, if I recall correctly, and that was Raps, right? And I felt like after I took him down, he said that if I could get past him, I could get past anyone. And then I said, "Man, if I knock Stark out of the tournament, I cannot afford to give up. I cannot afford to not be 100% because he deserves this much more than I do. He's the best, right? Like if I took him down, there's no excuse for me to not give everything I have to try to win." And it was really like poetic in a sense because I looked up to him quite a bit, and then the casting became a thing in 2022, and I worked a ton of these events, and I feel like I've hit my stride. I feel pretty confident casting, and he says he looks up to me in the casting area, so it was really like a swing back and forth of different talents and friendship. And yeah, I just want to say I admire Stark still to this very day. Very kind person, soothing for sure, but also very talented and very grounded. And I thought we had a really fun cast. I wanted it to feel a bit more like conversational, like fun, because I think that helps him to be less nervous. So that's why I did the goofy stuff that I did. Plus, it's the last show of the season, so we screwed
Yeah,
around a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit.
It was a
You
good
know,
time. And like it
yeah.
wasn't the goofiest thing you did that weekend because there was like there was like this Mark Park segment and
Oh, dude. Cheers,
like
Mark Park.
people were confused, but I
Yeah.
guess in a good way mostly.
Yeah, I was trying to channel some kind of mix of Super Troopers and Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation. That was like the medium I wanted to hit. But yeah, pulling Pocket and Dr. Roast Beef into that was hilarious. Um, yeah, I was told that I should do more segments like that. That they want to make that a recurring character. So we'll see.
Oh yeah. Okay, I love it. Now we get to split the cast as personality too. But yeah, you definitely picked out the right people to do the segment with because they definitely leaned into the whole fun heavily, and I thought that really made the segment.
It was awesome because before the segment started, Pocket could not keep it together. He kept looking at me and just laughing and just cracking up. And he's like, "Okay," he's like, "I gotta lock in." And then Dr. Roast Beef was basically doing his best not to laugh. He was trying to make me laugh. That was his goal, right? So when Pocket turned to me and he said, "Could you repeat?" But he like put the words really close together, so it sounded like Gurpeat. I was like, "Did you just call me Gurpeat?" He's like, "Gurpeat." Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
that was fun, and that was totally organic. That part was not planned. But yeah, I had a ton of fun with the skits, and I really again admire Stark, and I thought we had a really good show. I thought Rise and Phoebe were also very good together. I heard a lot of people saying good things about them as well. So congrats to those two fellas. I think Rise is. Yeah, I saw one reply that he's basically like the Michael Jordan of Pokemon Go. He does the casting, he does the competing, he does it all, content, and yeah, he's a special guy for sure. Well, I think that's all I have for Portland. A shout out to all the trainers that performed really well. Shout out to my boy Pranov for also top cutting. That was really impressive. And yeah, if you want, we can go to Bologna. And I'm really going to rely on you, my friend, because this stream ended before I woke up. So I watched back the grand finals. I watched back Filbeg's absolute dominance, but I missed a lot of the context. So I'm gonna hand it over to our EU correspondent here.
Yeah, let's do this. I'll just quickly pull up the graphics so I
Mm,
know that I won't stumble over my own thoughts. All right,
okay.
yeah, obviously. The event was won by an Italian trainer named Filbeg, who I think most people who only watch play Pokemon events may not know. This was his fourth event. He previously played in the Turin Special Championship. He played in the
Mhm.
Bologna Special Championship last year. He also competed at the Lille Regional once. He never made a top eight. Um,
Yeah.
but between you and I feel
Mhm.
like the name Philbag, like he's not a stranger to like extremely high performance
Mhm.
because if you remember the Go Battle League arena, that used to
Oh,
be a segment of yours, like a little show on Twitch.television. where you invited the top 8 players of the Go Battle League leaderboards.
Mhm.
You invited me once too, and I actually managed to get cast by House Stark, the one and only, that week. So that's a nice tie-in
Wow.
into our last segment.
Poetic.
Um, but yeah, like so, I'm a one-time Go Battle League weekly Go Battle League Arena weekly winner. Filbeg is a two times Go Battle League Arena weekly winner.
Mhm.
So he actually managed to not only be in the top 8 when you pulled the leaderboard data, but he also managed to defeat the other players within the top 8 in that little tournament setting twice. And I think we also had like a an event one time when it wasn't really down to okay who placed highest on the leaderboard that week, but
Mhm.
just like invited previous winners or something. Maybe that was like
Yeah.
an end of the season thing. And I actually went up against Philbeck first round, and he demolished me. So like he has definitely left his mark both at the GBL leaderboards. Where he has made the front page ever since the season of Go, which was the season after the interlude season in 2022. Ever since he has peaked on the front page of the GBL leaderboards every season. Um, and yeah, so definitely a grassroots hero, a GBL hero, and now also
Mhm.
only the second player to win a regional level event without dropping a single game. It's an 18-0 run, and that has
Insane.
only ever been done by LND Azarajev over in Brazil. I think it was the Porto Alegre regional one season.
Correct.
Um, so yeah, definitely history has been made. Um, and yeah, so Bologna, it was another special event. The European scene likes to close the season with a bunch of special championships,
Mhm.
and we had a good amount of storylines. I'll just keep talking, right? Because
Yeah.
it's difficult for you to follow the entire stream. So one very exciting match going into the second day of the competition that I was looking forward to was between Colin 6 and Kazim 33.
Oh, yeah.
Colin, obviously, we know him as the final boss, as the most decorated European trainer. Now tied with nickname actually, but like with the amount of grand finals that Colin has reached, with the amount of medals he has collected, probably still has the best case for being the greatest European battler of all time.
Mhm.
But he actually came off a little bit of a dry spell where he failed to make a winner's side day 2 for his last 4 consecutive tournaments. He still managed to sneak in into day 2 on the loser's side twice, but a player like Colin, you just expect him to be at the very top every single time, like
Mhm.
the Pockets and Rises and Doombugs in North America. So Colin definitely needed or was looking for another big finish, and he got it in third place, taking out Kazim, who I think is probably one of the, if not the newcomer of this year's European season,
Mhm.
Dortmund regional champion, and also actually the person who at the European International Championship had the most round wins. Like he was tied
Mm.
for most game wins because some fellas get to play best of threes in the grand finals, but because he had such a sick loser bracket run, he managed to actually win 11 rounds at EUIC, which
Ooh.
the biggest tournament of all time. Pretty impressive.
Wow.
And yeah, we essentially had those two titans face off with the better end for Colin. But at the end of the day, um, Kazim just made another sick loser bracket run, and both of them ended with a medal. Colin in third place, Kazim in fourth place. So yeah, who is good enough to come out ahead of Colin and Kazim? One of those people is PvP David in second place. And I personally was very proud of having made 3 grand finals this season. I thought, like, okay, maybe I haven't won a thing this season, but at least I have this going for me, like being
Yeah.
the only European to reach 3 grand finals. Not anymore, because
Oh,
PvP David actually is now the Stuttgart regional champion and the Stockholm and Bologna grand finalists. So one
yeah.
gold, 2 silvers, and I think the only reason why David isn't in that um, same conversation as Colin, who was like a TN Pizza team member of his,
Mhm.
is just because he doesn't get to go to as many regionals because
Agreed.
like the '07 in his name, I think that's his a year of birth. So I feel like he was like just about to turn 18 recently. Maybe he already has done that. Is if not, he's on the cusp. And even though we know that he has very supportive parents, he actually played his dad during the Stockholm regionals, which was very fun to witness. Obviously, like as a minor, you don't get to travel all that much, but
Sure.
whenever he does go to an event, he just really knocks it out of the park. And yeah, he only lost to Filbeg the entire tournament. His winner's set run ended in the winners finals. Then he got knocked down to face Colin Six, both of which actually ran the exact same team.
Mm.
And yeah, that team definitely took inspiration from Big Man Blastoise's heroics in Portland and the championship team from ItsAXN. But yeah, it was
I,
like a lot of
I
you
love
keep
that you use I love you
you
use the word heroic. I'm sorry.
it
Such a good word.
is, isn't it?
The heroic appearance of Big Man Blastoise. I also thought it was funny, like I risked it all, right? I just said that on the Portland cast because it's just so synonymous. That's what everybody memes on. That's what everybody thinks about it. But in the actual clip that was posted online, it just says Big Blastoise. You cut out the man because man is not a Pokemon.
Oh,
um, to brand guidelines. I want
yeah.
to sing the praises a bit more of PvP David because Home Size Henry and I were approached by a very generous sponsor named Rio, and he wanted to run a Spice Ball tournament where you essentially ban all of the best Pokemon that people are using in the Championship Series and in Open Great League in general. There were 69 bans when it was all said and done, so very nice. But PvP David competed in the Spice Bowl. Our top three were Firestar on the loser side bracket, and then Galaxica Bolton and David on that winner side bracket. I believe you competed in the Spice Bowl as well. But essentially, David went to that grand finals. Henry and I live streamed the tournament on YouTube. We covered 10 different matches, including all of our best of fives, being the winners, losers, and grand finals. Um, and David was just insane. I mean, we saw this at Worlds last year where he finished seventh overall. I called him out, him and Beelzebub as being like two young prodigies that are basically the next generation of competitive Pokemon Go players. And I feel like he's just proven that time and time again, and in recent events. Yes, thank you so much to Rio and PV Poke for supporting the Spice Bowl, because to your point earlier, we do need more community led tournaments, and it's just so sick to see David not only appearing in the grand finals here in Bologna, but also winning a specialized meta tournament on the side and winning a fair amount of money
I
by
cannot
doing so.
endorse his usage of Shadow Granbull in that tournament, but
I
other than
know.
that, I will have to agree that this is a fairly impressive feat.
I mean, the finals was literally Shadow Mightyena versus Shadow Granbull. I mean, this was like a crazy tournament experience. But yeah, I wanted to sing David's praises. I think he's incredibly gifted. Colin and Kazim, I'm looking at the bracket. They played twice, and Colin was the only person to beat Kazim in the tournament. Starting off day two, Colin 2-0'd Kazim, sent him down to the loser side bracket. Kazim went through Fazberry, nickname Frika, and then met Colin again, where he lost 1-2 to be eliminated from
Definitely,
the tournament.
definitely, Colin was somebody's final boss this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you as well about Kazim's talent. I think he is the newcomer to the competitive scene. When you look at Filbeg's bracket run, especially day number two, I mean, this is insane. He takes down Nickname in round one, right? Who already won two events this season. He takes down Colin in round two, and then he 3-0s and 3-0s, break out the broom, sweeps PvP David twice in both the looks like the winners finals and grand finals. So Filbeg's record speaks for itself, but he was clearly untouchable no matter who he was playing against.
And one thing that I want to call out in terms of Philbeck's actually gameplay is his ability to make predictions, to build lines and make predictions, because this is not even grand finals. Sometimes we go play by play for the grand finals if we want to
Sure.
call out something. This is winners finals game one. Philbeck leads his Talonflame into Lapras. He immediately swaps Malamar and draws out the Tinkerton. He could have also drawn out the Jumpluff, but the only two answers on the opposing team to a Malamar safe swap would be Pokemon that Talonflame could then easily farm down to get ahead on energy to have a
Mm.
positive matchup into Lapras. Because as soon as you're one turn ahead, you can just beat the Lapras in many scenarios.
Yeah.
It's just like a little more comfortable with Flame Charge as your fast attack, or charge attack rather, but like there's definitely a good win condition there by setting up this farm by safe swapping the one Pokemon that only draws out answers that you can just farm down with your Talonflame. But this was not everything that happened that game, because PvP David, he reads the strategy of like him trying to get the farm done with Talonflame. So he safe swaps, or
Mhm.
like he counter swaps the Tinkaton. He actually goes down a shield even, but then he still very purposefully lets the Malamar get low, but he loses the alignment, and that is because
Mm.
he has the Big Man Blastoise in the back.
Mm.
So no matter what happens, he is going to have a positive matchup against the Talonflame, and he would rather preserve some energy on his Pokemon rather than let the Talonflame get a farm down. So
Mm.
he purposefully loses the middle matchup, gets the Psywave down with the Lapras,
Mm.
and now there's a choice to be made on Filbeg's side, because he could now take the alignment that was handed to him by PvP David and just bring in the Ferret. But then the
Yep.
Ferret would have taken the damage from the Sparkling Aria, would have taken Psywaves, would have just gotten really, really low. So
Yep.
Filbeg makes a read. And he brings his Talonflame into a loaded Lapras after he just did a safe swap that was designed to get his Talonflame away from the Lapras. But he reads that because of the way that David played it, there must be the Blastoise in the back. So he keeps his shields for the Furret, he
Wow.
tanks his Sparkling Aria, gets to a fly, gets some valuable chip damage, and two shield Furret just trailblazes, manages energy perfectly, and takes out the two water types. And
Wow.
multiple adjustments from both sides within the same game, that's just like really high level gameplay that sometimes, especially if you're like not as familiar with those type of mind games, it may just
Mhm.
well go over your head. Like you will be questioning, oh, why did he do it like that? Why didn't he just throw the big move and take switch
Yeah.
advantage? But both players actually had really good ideas in that matchup, but Philbag just was one step ahead after PvP David attempted that 1-5 head play. And I think that says a lot about the level of these competitors. That even after everything's locked in, after the teams are decided, like there's still um, information that is not yet
Mhm.
revealed, but that can be deduced if you just make the right interpretations from the moves your opponent is making.
I'm looking at the team here from David, and if Philbeg is making that kind of read, and you said that he saw the Tinkaton and the Lapras, but had not seen the Blastoise in the back. Of the remaining options, it would be Diggersby, Blastoise, Shadow Jumpluff, or Malamar. If he's only seen two of the six Pokemon, and if you look at those matchups, I mean, worst case for that Furret is probably the Shadow Jumpluff, I would say, especially even energy. But I mean, Furret's got a ton of utility into that. It's just to your point, it's incredible that he was able to kind of like not only recognize the win condition, but also to manage the win condition, send that Talonflame back into the Lapras, and not just immediately, be so far behind from that decision that he's able to close things out and predict the Blastoise in the back. These things are so subtle, and I feel like a lot of players just watching the stream might not realize it. And I know it's like the commentator's job to kind of bring these things to light, to mention them, to talk about them. And we did have a really good crew in Bologna. So I will go back and watch the stream. I'm excited to see if the casters called that out, because we did have some very talented gentlemen this weekend. But yeah, I mean, how subtle, how nuanced. But a person like you, right, who's regularly competing, you see these things and you know exactly what's happening.
But also, you have to be locked in on the day. Like, you need to
Mm-hmm.
be on your A game and just be present enough in that moment to think about all those subtleties
Mm-hmm.
within the few seconds that you get to think about them. So
Hmm.
yeah, like even if you're mechanically gifted and you know what you're doing to make those reads in real time, that really sets the best of the best apart. And it was a really great back and forth to watch. And also, I really want to compliment the team building on the side of Filbeg, because that was
Mm.
not just a like like a cookie cutter team that he got from
No.
somewhere and um just like took it because it did well somewhere else. I really liked his combination of Talonflame and the regular Swampert,
Mm.
because this is not only a pretty decent core into a lot of the meta, but those two Pokemon are also excellent at handling Tinkaton.
Yep.
And once Tinkaton is out of the picture, the Furret has infinite play essentially. Like if you look at the teams finishing in second and third, there's Lapras, there's Diggersby, there's Blastoise, there's
Yep.
the Tinkaton, which you definitely want to scare away, and then there's like Jumpluff and Malamar, which are negative on paper, but against Jumpluff, you just straight up win the two shields. And
Yeah.
against Malamar, if they let the first move go, the sucker punches will add up, especially now that for like, I don't know whether the graphic is exactly correct. I feel like the PvP David team had a Shadow Malamar, but like if the Malamar is Shadow, um, like once you land a move and once you keep two shields, the Furret is just going to
You
sucker punch
just
down.
eat it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So yeah, really enabling this one Pokemon that used to be on Fraud Watch, but I feel like it has done enough now. I think Furret is actually good,
Yeah.
and yeah,
I think
we
so
do
too.
see it. And on like as part of a very similar team on 9 Alfie 2's
Hmm.
line of six in the top eight. Another Italian name that may not have had as much exposure as some of these other trainers, but
Hmm.
that's like the beauty of those regional events, especially like in Southern Europe, where it's maybe not as easy as, for example, in the Netherlands or Belgium or Germany, where a lot of events are in driving range.
Hmm.
So yeah, those trainers definitely appreciate when something happens closer to home. And yeah, we did see some good furred action from the Italians this weekend.
I think it's incredible that Swampert has only won two gold medals. I say only. That's more than I thought it would win this season. But both of its gold medals, excuse me, are both in EU. We had HK
Okay.
Assassin and now Filbeg. Cool stat for you. We've had 14 Swamperts top cut this season, or at least be in top eight. I should be more specific. Be in top eight. Five of those were Shadow. The remainder were regular, and the only two again to hit gold were both European Swamperts, which is I think is pretty funny. Yeah, I agree. The team composition is definitely a little bit strange. If you don't have the graphic in front of you on the YouTube version, I'll just call it out for everyone listening at home. Azumarill, right? The Pokemon's back. Azumarill, Swampert, Furret, Tinkaton, Talonflame, and Shadow Malamar. So even though he had double fairy type Pokemon, no Lapras, no Blastoise, no Jumpluff, no new tech, no Drapion as well, right? The Shadow Malamar is what I kept on seeing being discussed on socials. I saw this in Discord. I saw this on Twitter. I saw a lot of people saying, man, the Shadow Malamar was honestly insane. And the way you're able to play it was really impressive. So yeah, Filbeg with the Shadow Malamar. I think there were one, two, three, four, five, six, seven Shadow Malamars, maybe more if the Dracovic graphic is
Yeah.
incorrect in the top 16, which is pretty good.
One thing that I also want to call out is that, especially with such a shadow Pokemon such as Malamar, you don't you don't want the perfect that you don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good,
Mm,
because um, you may not have gotten a rank top 50 Malamar during the Rocket Takeover event recently, but Philbeck actually benefited from the fact that his Malamar was probably a lower rank than PvP David's, or like in terms of like worse PvP IVs, because he did win CMP, and if you lead
yes.
Malamar into Malamar, that is decided by CMP and CMP only if you have the Shadow, because previously with the triple resisted Psywaves, you could easily tank two foul plays and probably not get farmed down immediately. So playing the zeros would always guarantee that the opposing Malamar would be taken down far, far to the right.
Yep.
Whereas now, you just tank one, you're in the yellow, but the next just takes you out.
Yep.
So yeah, like in those situations, like there was one game in the grand finals where it was Malama
Game
into
two.
Malama lead.
Game two.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, like from that point onwards, it was really difficult for PvP David to make anything happen
Yep.
because obviously you can't just play this out, you just lose alignment. But then he makes the successful catch on Tinkaton in the back. But
Yep.
that just aligned the Tinkaton to the Swampert. So the Swampert got to be exactly where it wanted to be. And
Exactly.
that is because of that charge attack priority situation in the lead, which really dictated where the games went for Filbeg a lot of the time.
Yeah, and for myself, only watching back the grand finals, when that game kicked off, I remember it very very clearly. When that game kicked off, and PvP David was just straight up avoiding charge attack priority, I said he has to know. He has to know he's not going to win the charge attack priority here, and this is already information that he's working with. So,
I
yeah,
think it
it
was revealed
just
in the winners finals. So yeah, he
exactly.
definitely had the information.
Just with that little bit of context, I was able to tell. Yeah, he already knows he's not going to win the charge tech priority. I've heard a lot of folks playing, attack weighted Malamar in days past. I think Shadow probably still has its own breakpoints and such. It's just such a shame that Shadow Malamar comes out and then Niantic immediately throws all these bug buffs. His Fury Cutter is now insane, and Bug Bite is going to be kind of like Dragon Breath and all this other stuff. I'm just like, man, Shadow
You get to
Malamar
have
had
one tournament and one tournament
yes.
only.
I mean, is there a more like clear example of 5 minutes of fame? That's literally, the phrase. I think
I don't
Malamar
know.
was popular for 5 minutes, or Shadow version, I should
Like
say.
maybe like one of those in between metas where you had Shadow Steelix pop off all of a
True.
sudden, but
Yeah.
yeah, like really, that was a very unfortunate timing of the release. But
Mhm.
also, maybe we're counting it out too soon. Like we don't know how popular all those bug biters will actually end up being on the teams that people will bring in the Delightful Days meta. So I would not transfer my Shadow Malamar just yet. Don't make it into candy and send it to the farm. Instead, just hold on to it, see where the meta goes, and whether you'll find an opening with it, because it is a very potent Pokemon.
I- ZZ, I'm not ever going to tell people to transfer their Shadow Malamar, but I really think you are stretching the truth here when you say that you think its days might not be completely over, especially in the short term. I can't wait to talk about our picks for
You're a
our.
fortress truther. Like I will
You'll be
take your opinion.
surprised. You'll
Oh,
be
okay, okay,
surprised.
okay.
Yes. I'm
I
not a huge fan of Pokemon that have double weaknesses, especially when it looks like the environment is primed for fire type Pokemon. I'll
yeah,
just say
that is
that for
fair.
now.
That is
Um,
fair.
but yeah,
Again, one instance where we really want to get into the new meta discussions,
I
but
know we're like
there's
raring to
there's
go.
still there's still some ground to cover.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
yeah, Bologna also the very last event of the European circuit, which doesn't mean it's the last time Europeans will earn championship points, but
Mhm.
for now, PvP David and Kazim, I think if my calculations are correct, they should jump ahead of Koifje and Tomahawk UK in the travel award race.
Mhm.
But we know that Tomahawk is going to NAIC as a competitor,
Yep.
and I think Marcus Asius Aurelius is also going to be in New Orleans to maybe get some more points to jump into that top eight. So nobody's safe just yet. But yeah, also I do want them to introduce a shower with cold water for Marcus every time in a Zoomer wins a tournament. Because I feel like wherever he goes, he's just followed by that big bunny that just keeps on winning and winning.
Yeah, it's like